Welcome to the Jag Media Podcast, a collection of riffs, rants, and tough conversations about business, life, and the mistakes we made along the way. I'm your moderator, Azza. This is Jimmy and Anson. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment with your key takeaway. Gentlemen, welcome to episode
It's
27.
we're actually at 27. What's going on there?
After all the
Right.
jokes, we finally got there, right?
After all the banter, hey?
Yeah, it only took us 2 years.
Yeah.
Let's
Yes.
rip in. Today's conversation is about what's been on our mind lately.
Same format
I'm
as
gonna
last week?
Same format as last week.
Yes.
I'm going to abuse the age before beauty once more time and ask you, lads, how much of what people do in life is influenced by external factors and their environment, and why?
All right. Go for it, Eds.
I honestly think basically everything, external factors, right? Like, I think from the moment you're born, you're influenced from the get-go, right? Like, for me and upbringing, like when I was growing up, like my influence was, yeah, my family, all right? My brother, my sister, my mum and dad. Obviously, dad threw us into like futsal. We come from football, like futsaling background. We went straight into that. My brother played futsal, I played futsal. External factor, right? And then, as you grow older, the people that you know, the things that you learn through the household, you bring it into like a schooling life, the friends and family and everything like that. So like those people that you connect yourself with really create who you fucking are. Like I am a little bit of everyone who I've been influenced around in my whole life, all right? And don't get me wrong, it's not that you don't pave your own way. I think you just choose everything that you like of every sort of people. Like I like to think of it as like my brother and my sister are very different people. Okay. They're left and right people. All right. And I feel like I'm a path in between them. And I feel like I've chosen not so much the best bits of them, but I feel like I've chosen the things that I like of them and I choose my own sort of path and go with that, if that makes sense. So I feel like everything is really external factors. Um, but yeah, I feel like internally you got to look at that as like you can't do things because other people like them. I feel like you got to do things because you like them or the way they look from their like from the way they influence things type thing. Like if you like what someone does, you go and do that as well type thing. It's not for the case of like under the influence of them. And I know that like that can definitely be an influence to fit in, to be cool, to be with the cool kids. Like I used to be like that, like back when as well. But you learn over time. I think I spoke about this last week. Is like if you don't learn over time, like what you want to do and like how you live your own life, you end up living a life that's just fake. It's a big facade, and then you'll be looking at yourself in the mirror like 20, 30 years, depending how old you fucking are. When you actually wake up and look at yourself and like, who the fuck I am? You don't even recognize who you are in the mirror. You know what I mean? So I think external factors are a major thing, but if you don't realize, it's everything. But if you don't realize who you are in that sort of path, then you kind of lose yourself in the end.
Sort of having that self-awareness. If you don't have that self-awareness,
Hmm.
you lose yourself somewhere along the way. Yeah, I completely agree with that one.
Lose yourself, good old Eminem.
Sorry.
I
Lose
said
yourself.
lose yourself, good old Eminem. 100%, 100%.
All right. Yeah, I agree with Anson in terms of I think it's a huge factor um, in shaping who we are as people. I think it's on us as we get older though to really analyze life. And again, you already touched on it then, as when you said self-awareness. I think not enough people have that awareness to go. They do things, for example, buy a house, get a mortgage, pay it off over 30 years, live, paycheck to paycheck for that 30 years. And then you have an asset, which obviously in the current climate will be hard to do if you're buying now. If you bought 10 years ago, it would have been, it would have doubled it in value. So I think for the most part, our whole life is going through just trying to fit in to society, just trying not to rock the boat, or trying to be too different to people, so that we nurture that caveman in us that just wants to be part of a clan, be part of a tribe. Um, I think all of the people that you sort of look at and admire on social media, the reason that you love them is because they have that awareness to go, this doesn't serve me, or this isn't the way that I want to project myself in the world, and they choose a different path. And every person that you follow on social ordinarily has their own sort of voice, their own sort of image. They are different to the norm effectively, which is probably why people latch onto them, because they can see part of that quirky side of themselves in that person, but they're sort of too afraid to let the animal out of the cage in a way. Yeah, so yeah, this is your question. I think it's a massive factor, and I put here as a tool for us going forward and what we're building, to have an exercise in around that second facet, that mindset facet around filtering the things that we do day to day through this actual lens, where does it serve me, does it not serve me, is this what I want to do, or is this what I've been sort of taught to do, or put in a box to do. So I think it's a great opening question, because as soon as you said it, it really got me thinking. I the big analogy I've used a lot of times is when I was 7 and I threw the pencil at Shane Richards and nearly made him blind. That was because of factors that, the external factors. I wanted to be cool, I wanted to fit in. And sort of on that day, I then started to forge my own path. Now, as I've said before in different podcasts, I took it to an extreme where I was like, what are people doing? I'm going to do the complete opposite. So again, it's still doing the same thing. It's just in the opposite direction. I'm still conforming to societal norms, but pivoting. What if I do agree with some of the things here? So it's just about finding what works for you. And unless you take the time and build that self-awareness muscle, you sort of do skate through life just on what everyone else sort of expects or thinks of you.
Yeah, I really like those points. And self-awareness and Jimmy, the does it serve me? And that's what it comes down to. There's many famous experiments around this. One of the ones that sticks in my memory is people sign up for the experiment. They obviously know they're going to an experiment, but they're told to go in the waiting room, and they go in the waiting room and they're sitting down and they're doing what they're doing. They're playing on their phone, or they're reading, or something like that. And there's 5 other people in the waiting room, but the 5 other people are planted people. They're part of the experiment. The
Mm.
subject thinks they're about to go into the experiment. Anyway, about a minute later, maybe a minute and a half, a bell goes off, and the five planted people, the 5 plants, they stand up, and the person looks around and goes, something's not right. Like, you can tell on their face something's not right. A second or two later, bell goes off again. 5 plants sit down. A few seconds later, bell goes off again. 5 plants stand up, and you can see the visible, what do I do here,
Mm.
on the subject. And it's either on the second or the third time they get it. They're like, oh, bell
Mm.
goes off, I stand
Mm.
up. Right, so they stand up. Bell goes off, they sit down. One of the plants is called in. A new subject walks in. So now we got 2 subjects. Second subject sits down. Bell goes off. Looks around. Bell goes off a second time. Stands up with everyone. Sits down. Happens over and over and over. Just new subjects coming in. New subjects coming in. Rotating. By the 5th time, all the planted people are out,
Mm.
and now you've got 5 or 6 people, 5 or 6 subjects
Mm. They were not
standing
part of
up.
it. It's
They were
crazy.
not. Yeah, yeah. Like, the experiment's been done with monkeys. Experiment's been done with drawing lines and matching of lines. But the idea that it's when you break it down, it's a biological response to survival. Fit in with the
Mm,
crowd or die. Right?
100%.
That's the extreme of it. But now, like the clip obviously shows what the experimenters want to convey and want to communicate. Obviously, it doesn't happen with every single person, but it conveys that the majority of us just conform to what's going on
Mm,
in
societal
society
norms. Yeah.
for survival. Like guaranteed, there would have been about I think the actual number is either 83% of people stand up and down, or it's 94%. It's
Mm,
something
which is
ridiculous.
insane. Even
It's
83 is
insane.
ridiculous.
Yeah, because there's no, as you said,
Four and
there's no
five.
self-awareness.
Mm,
There's no self-awareness to go, does this serve me? Or
mm.
why am I
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
this?
they don't think to question it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on autopilot, and when we go onto autopilot, this is why I'm actually a big fan of self-reflection, prayer, journaling, meditation. Obviously, no one gets it right all the time. Even Alex Hormozy has his bad days, right? But that those specific actions get us out of our own head, get us out of our own body, and help us look down on ourselves and see, are what we're doing serving us? We're not going to get it
Mm,
right all the time, but like we need to ask ourselves, why am I standing up when the bell's going off? Like, how did this start? We need that awareness and self-reflection.
agreed.
Um, so at least 95% of our life
Mm.
is dictated by external factors. And like I've even got heaps of stories.
Oh, yeah.
We
We've
all
all got it in us, so we're all human. So it's just those moments where you can catch yourself,
mm,
but the truth is, the autopilot helps us too, because you think about work, right? Like, how many times have you driven to the office and,
yeah.
fuck, that was quick today. I don't even remember turning at this corner or that intersection, or I'm here. And it helps us because we don't have to think about these things. We don't have to use that mental sort of bandwidth. Um, so there are pros and cons to it, but for the
Yeah.
most part, yeah.
Autopilot does help us when I think Anson, did you read Atomic Habits?
Sorry.
Jimmy, I know you listened to it. The book Atomic Habits. Did you end
Yeah.
up yeah. The author states that we sink to the level of our systems. And I think if our personal systems are set up, then autopilot's fine. But until we set up those systems, we're
Yeah.
going to be constantly
Yeah. Yeah. It's
conforming
just
to
the standard
what
of habit,
society,
right? The
yeah,
standard of, yeah, of
bingo.
bullshit.
We're
So
going to be constantly conforming to what
agreed.
the tribe is doing for
Yeah.
survival.
Yeah.
And survival mode isn't great.
No. Yeah, but as I said, there are periods where you need to endure it, but for the most part, the quicker you can not live in that mode, the better your life will be, for sure.
100%.
All right,
100%.
yeah, let's go for it.
Easy. So basically, we actually touched on this on our call this week. I thought it was important to sort of bring up because I actually wanted to lash it out a little bit more. Basically, why do you feel that we can have all the knowledge and the tools about something,
Hmm.
but still not be able to implement it?
I
All right.
think, yeah. Do you want to elaborate, or?
Oh, yeah, basically, like for example, our diets. Yeah, why do we fucking go to Macca's
Hmm.
or eat some chocolate? Yeah, you said you were catching yourself in the pantry some days, and you're like, fuck, halfway through a bar of chocolate, and you're like, I'll just come back to it Monday. Yeah, why do we let ourselves off the hook every fucking time
Hmm.
when we know we're doing wrong?
Yeah, I think part of it is what we just spoke about in terms of standards. we 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 fall into habits that are easy because we quite often choose the easy road, especially in modern society with everything at our fingertip. So we take the easy path more often than not because it's fucking easy. It just makes life harder longer term. I think I think the standards are low. We don't obviously see ourselves as strong, powerful, and again, maybe we haven't given ourselves enough evidence because we haven't done enough of those X's and O's. We are who we say we are when we look in the mirror. we have an idealistic version of who we'd like to be, but in between where we are and where we'd like to be, there are 100 steps, and those steps are quite often every day, and they're mundane and they're boring. So doing that mundane, boring, and then the next part is probably the biggest part is the accountability thing. If you're only holding yourself to a standard and no one else knows, well, quite often, we'll do more for others than we will do for ourselves. So not having that accountability, someone to answer to, um, is probably the biggest factor, because you can tell yourself, oh, I'll start again Monday. And again, it's just the subconscious mind that has all the habits, has all that autopilot we've spoken about, versus the conscious mind who's self-aware and is goal-driven, effectively. I have a goal. Is current action leading me towards goal? Yes or no? Quite often it isn't. And we still then go, yeah, but we can just restart goal here, instead of going, no, hard now, easy later. Hard now, easy later. It's all easier said than done. So then it's environmental factors, like there are 100 things to go into it, but the psyche around it is you don't have the accountability, you don't have anyone to answer to, it's only you. I can start again Monday. So, which is why coaching is so powerful, such a powerful tool.
100%, 100%. So a little kick in the butt that you don't realize you need until you have it, and then you're like, "Fuck, I understand the power behind it." So
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
As
Like you nailed it on the head. It's easier to tell someone what, it's easier to tell someone what to do than do it yourself. And we've all been there, having coached people like on a personal level, and you guys
Having
obviously
calls all week with each other.
yeah, exactly right. And you guys obviously in the personal training space, and we've all coached someone on a personal level, on a success level. And it's so much easier to tell someone what to do as opposed to do it yourself. And I think it's a combination of things. I think and it's like it's crazy that you asked this question, because I was going to ask the exact same question. Like it was, yeah, absolutely. It was playing on my mind last night, but it wasn't until you asked the question that I've got now kind of a working theory and a working idea. I've put two facets of personal development together, and I think maybe I've got an idea for a for a formula, a platform, a framework. But this has definitely been on all of our minds, especially this last week, and everything that's been going on in our business in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't rise to the level of our standards. We fall to the level of our systems. Again, like Atomic Habits, James Clear, you need those systems in place for when you go on autopilot. That's what you default to.
Yep.
And I think there's also a mix of we haven't grounded we haven't grinded something out enough. So say it's a physical transformation that someone's striving to do, right? I'll tangent and come back. In addiction, I don't know if you've ever met or heard a story about an alcoholic who's having a bad day. And a bad day for them is very, very different to a bad day for a normal person, because all they can think about is that drink. And it's so hard just to get through it. I liken it to smoking, and I shared the story last week about how I'm walking up to the fucking counter and I'm like, I shouldn't be paying for these. I shouldn't be getting another packet. I need to stop. Right. In that person's, all they can think about is, how do I get my hands on a drink?
Mm.
And it fucking consumes them. I think if I tie this to, say, weight loss and not eating the right things, and I've been down that path too. Like, you open the fridge, you're looking at the cake going, I shouldn't be eating this, but you still do, right? It's like, that's the grit Angela Duckworth talks about. I haven't read the book, but the premise is fairly grit. Like, you just grind
Mm-hmm.
out, you just
Raw dog it.
fucking white knuckle it, raw dog it, and just grind out the day, get to bed. The best thing to do is just to get to bed and go, I've just got to get through this day. It will be
Hmm.
okay. And that's how alcoholics do it. They just, their motto is one day at a time.
Yeah.
Every day is a new day. They've got to slay that beast, but they got to slay it every day. So
Yeah.
I think, and when you slay the beast, I remember again, I remember this from smoke. When you go one day without smoking or without executing that addiction, that habit that caused the addiction that takes over your life, like obviously smoking doesn't take over people's lives, but it's very health de-beneficial, whatever the opposite
Hmm.
of beneficial is. When you go a day and don't smoke it or don't do that habit that's destroying your life, it's a check mark, it's a tick. It's more evidence
Yeah.
that it's more evidence that you can overcome it and you can do the things that you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
We don't have technology's completely fucked our willpower.
Hmm.
We don't have that willpower to grind it out and raw dog it for that day
Yeah.
and
Delay
get over
gratification, right?
delay gratification. It is, we are so depleted. We're easily on our phones scrolling.
Yeah.
So I think a combination of not setting up the right. So if you set up in that scenario, if you set up meal prep and just grind it the fuck out, which is way easier said than done,
Hmm.
that'll give you that check mark. And then you
Yeah.
can default to the container of food that's there instead of the block of cake that shouldn't even be
Yeah.
there in the first place. Like that's
Yeah.
not part, that shouldn't be part of the system. The
Mm.
system should be a fucking empty fridge of junk
Yeah.
food.
Yeah. Well, just don't have it in your environment, so you can't eat
Yeah.
it then if it's not there.
And then AA has it perfect. And we've spoken about this many times. Step 12 is helping someone
Mm.
else.
Hmm.
And you can't get into AA without a sponsor. So if you've got that accountability, those
Yeah.
three layers, which I really think is delivered in what we do from a PT perspective, from a personal coaching perspective. It's that accountability, building the
Hmm.
systems, and just we're big fans of raw dogging stuff sometimes. I know Anson definitely is. um, if you can grind it out and just go one day at a time, I think that's the
Yeah.
framework for doing what you say you're going to do instead
Yeah.
of just talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Ed Milet talks about his book in one of his books. It's just one more. Like his dad was an alcoholic, and he tried to quit 100 times. And on the last time he tried to quit, Ed turns to him as a kid and goes, "Are you going to quit this time for real?" And he goes, "I can't promise you that, but I can promise you that I'll be sober for just one more day." And if you approach every day like that, and the thing about, we're talking about alcoholism here. With food, if you've got 20 kilo to lose, you only need to do it till you lose 20 kilo.
Yeah.
Maintenance is pretty easy. You might go up a little bit, but if you've got the tools to do like a mini week or two cut to get back down, it probably takes you 2 to 3 months to put that weight back on. So for the most part, you're in maintenance. You're in a pretty good position. It's just getting that initial weight off and then heading into that mode. So just do it one more day and wake up with that intention every day. You can put yourself in a good position. Sorry, Ants, go for it.
You're good. I like it, lads. I like it. You hit like pretty much all my points there. I feel like Jimmy touched on, a bit of dopamine there. It's more accessible. It's the easiest thing. It's the easiest sort of route to go to. So that's where we sort of go to, because it's there. Why would I go for the hard route? You know what I mean? There's no accountability, as you said as well. It's like the self accountability side of things is like we can tell so many people how to do things and blah, blah, blah. When you push people, it's so much easier. But when we're doing it to ourselves, I don't know, there's some reason that we just let ourselves off the hook and we'll pat ourselves on the back. But like if we did that to a mate, you know what I mean? If we go,
Mm.
we say to someone like, we're going to be here at this time, and then we're not there at that time, and we just kept doing that all the fucking time, I'd fucking hate that prick. You know what I mean? I would never organize stuff with that guy. You know what I mean? And it's the same sort of thing that we're doing with ourselves. It's not us turning up at a certain time, but it's us saying, hey, we're not going to go do this and then go do it. It's the same thing, but different.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's like comparison as well. I feel like we also try to look at like these, like social media is fucking
The external factors.
external factors. Yeah, we look at everything around us and we go, oh, I want to do this, I want to be that. That's why people jump on the gear. That's why, yeah, they think it's easier than it is, and they start to do it. And yeah, we just compare, and because we're not like them, everyone has their own different builds. Everyone's such a different sort of way. No one's going to look like one another. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to look like fucking C-Bum. You know what I mean? Like, especially without some gear. So no chance in hell. But the comparison there is a huge thing, because like when we look at someone else and we want to be like that, and then we start to grind and work to it, and then we realize how fucking tough it is to get to it, then we go back to the dopamine hit, because we realize we're never going to get to that sort of stage. And you also touched on like standards as well, like self standards. And I think that for a way to sort of get past it, some people, like for us, we set our standards very fucking high, right? Yeah, as coaches as well, we expect a lot of our clients. And what I've noticed with working with a couple of clients as well is like standards aren't going to be as high. Like everyone's standards are very different, right? Yeah. So I've noticed that in a sort of way, we've got to look at it from their sort of spectrum. And I think we actually spoke about this on the call, is like sort of bringing it out in like a bird's eye view, and then looking at the steps towards those, like towards an end goal. And I think that setting the sort of standards, like if you're a person who doesn't exercise all the time, doesn't switch on their diet, is 20, 30 kilos overweight, and then you jump into something where you go strict diet, strict training, and you do a week or two of it, yes, the accountability side, some people can do it. I'm not saying they can't do it, but I feel like some people get in and they get overwhelmed straight away. I think the standards need to be set just that little bar lower, where what's the end goal? Well, how long is how long is a piece of string? How long do you want to get to? Like, how quickly do you want to get to that sort of goal? And then set the little steps up towards it. So say if you want to lose 30 kilos in a year, that's easily fucking done. You know what I mean? 30, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of weight, but it's,
half a kilo a week.
Half a kilo a week. You know what I mean? So when you look at it from a big sort of spectrum of 30 kilos, it's like, that's a fucking long way to go. But if you break it down to a half a kilo a week, it's just like, it seems so much easier, so much more accessible. And I think that sort of side of things is like setting the standards to your standards is sort of is a good way of looking at it. So yeah, I mainly asked it because I think it's a good reflection for us, and I think it's going to help us push each other, not just health and fitness sort of spectrum, but also in a business as well. So I thought it was a good question to sort of bring up. I know we touched on it, I think it was Friday or Thursday, and I think it was something I really wanted to delve into a bit more. So
yeah, I like it.
Good question.
All right, so my question is, how important is goal setting and why? And then what sort of framework do you use to set goals? This is more around us obviously coming up with methodologies, with frameworks for our business, and sort of cementing those things so that we can go, all right, this is our said tool for what it is that you want to do. So how important is goal setting and why? And then what sort of framework do you use to set goals?
Answer, you go first.
Yeah, all right. Basically, goal setting is, it makes something achievable. It makes it, it's pretty much just touched on it. It's like climbing the ladder to get towards a certain goal. And really, it's like about breaking, like you want to look at the big picture, but you also want to break it down. So like, what's the end goal for like a yearly goal is like something that's going to be so far achievable. Like we've spoken on a couple of times where I don't think we've really implemented them very, very highly. All right. We say we want to do this, but we never really break down the steps on how to get there. We just do little bits in here. And I think goal setting in a way makes it look like you can actually do things. You can have the big picture, you can have the big picture where you like, but if you don't know how to fucking get there though, that's the most important thing. So for me, breaking it down, it's like, for example, like we went on the 10 for 10, we lost 10 kilos in 10 weeks. It was like, all right, so that's the goal. All right, 10 kilos, 10 weeks. How do we fucking do that? Diet. All right, diet, we broke it down into little sort of bits of like, how many calories do we have to eat? What's your protein intake that you have to hit? That's one sort of certain thing. How many days a week are we going to be training? 10K steps a day. Those are little like factors and little steps that you're going to take along the way that if you tick all those boxes every single day, we're going to make sure we hit that end goal. So without all those little facets, like you just look at, we're going to lose 10 kilos in 10 weeks. And you're like, all right, so we'll just eat less, move more. You know, if you're just doing that, you might lose a couple of kilos, but you're not going to measure it out into like an aspect of losing 10 kilos in 10 weeks. So
Yeah, you don't feel on the right track. Yeah.
yeah, so like if you don't have something big and achievable to work towards, I don't think you really are working towards anything. So goal setting is probably one of the most important things in business and life. And then when you look at it in life, like for example, like if you're looking for a big promotion that you want to work towards, you know, how are you going to get the fucking promotion? I want to get the promotion, but you're not willing to do more hours at work. You're not willing to do the overtime. You know, like how the fuck are you supposed to do that if you're not fucking pushing towards it? You know, so it's
Yeah,
about
upskilling, all those things. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely. So it's about breaking down like what do you want? What do you want to go to? No matter what the fuck it is. Like if you want that big job, you want to lose it. You always bring it back to training because I love the training, but like you want to lose the kilos or put on some weight. You know, without those goals to set and something to work towards, you're really just like floating in the water.
Yeah. No, I like it. 100%.
And so
Johnny?
I think you nailed the. I always use the analogy of you don't rock up to play or do archery without a target,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm.
or the other analogy I use is you can't play archery blindfolded because you don't know what you're hitting. You need a goal. I whenever I look at goal setting, whenever I go down the track of how to goal set and look for other frameworks and look for other ways of goal setting, no matter how you dice it, it's divided into the smart. It's always smart
Mm.
goals. Smart goals always win. That you can bring any sort of goal setting methodology and this is the specific part of and smart is specific, measurable, action orientated, um realistic, and I'll go a bit deeper into all of them, and then time bound,
Mm-hmm.
right? No matter how you dissect any sort of goal setting methodology, that's what it is. That's how
Mm-hmm.
it breaks down. Right, Anson, your one about being specific. You can't get a goal unless you can't achieve a goal unless you know exactly what it is. You can't do archery without the target. You need to know what you're hitting. So it has to be well defined, and the more specific and tangible it is, the better. If I stay on the archery analogy, it's like hit the target. Okay, let's get more specific. Hit the middle of the target. Right? It's not easy to hit a target in archery, but it's easier to hit the whole thing than it is to hit the fucking middle. Right? So the more specific it is, the better, and that's where visualization comes into it. That's where all those sort of, I call them woo woo, but like there's science behind it of getting specific on exactly what your goal is. Measured, how do you know if you lose 30 kilos?
You
It's
lost
on the
30 kilos.
scale. It's
Yeah.
on the scale, right? It's visual, but visual could be between 10 and 40 kilos, but the scale says it's 30. You have to be able to, any venture, any undertaking has to be able to be measured, because if you don't measure it, you lose your way. You lose motivation. If you can't see progress, Simon Sinek has the best analogy. 20,000 years ago, we're roaming the savannah. We get dopamine hits by getting closer and closer to the apple tree because the apple tree has food. That's the measurement part of it. And that's like the biology that comes into it as well. When we can see the scale slowly creeping towards zero or creeping towards our goal weight, we stay motivated. If it goes the opposite way, shit hits the fan, we decide this sucks, it doesn't work because probably you're not doing the right action steps, and give up.
Yeah.
In any goal you're trying to attain, you need action steps. It's all well and good to say, I want to lose 30 kilos by this time to fit into this thing for this party, da 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 da. You could have the most specific goal, but if you don't break it down to exercise more? How am I going to exercise more? When am I going to exercise more? What are the steps? How am I going to eat less? When am I going to eat less? What am I going to eat? If you don't have those, it's and under that there's more SMART goals, and it can just go down and down and down if you want. Realistic, I think this is where the personal coaching side of it comes into it. It's the grow model. Realistically, where are you now? You have to have, and self-awareness comes into it as well. You have to know, I hope I'm not stepping on your toes, Jimmy.
No, go. It's good.
Um, I'm worried now that you're going to go, oh, this is the SMART method.
No.
Realistically,
Go.
you have to know where you're at before you undertake or go anywhere. If you're in New York, you have to know you're in New York to get to Los Angeles. Otherwise, you're just going to be spinning in different directions.
Yeah.
And then the T is for time bound it's when, like,
By
you don't
which
put a,
day?
yeah, if you don't put a deadline on something,
Mm.
it's not going to get done. That's why I am the biggest fan of people having a calendar, time blocking. Like, that's a whole nother fucking episode, but going at this time, I'm going to do this. At this time, I'm going to stop this and move on to the next thing. And that falls into the action steps as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to eat this at this time. And that's the system. That's the system that someone who's trying to attain that goal should be defaulting to. And if the meal prep is done right as well, and it doesn't taste like dog shit like mine did last week, if the meal prep is done right, it's so much easier to open the fridge, grab that meal and warm it up, as opposed to open the fridge and go, what the fuck am I going to eat? Your willpower depletes. You got no, you don't get a dopamine hit of getting that food into you. Yeah, like that's my sort of, if someone comes to me and goes, I want to do this, I'm like, what specifically do you want to do? How are you going to figure out? And I just go down that framework has been around, and the grow framework on top of it has
Yeah.
been around for
Yeah, still there's time for sure.
as long as I've been studying personal development.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right. You guys have obviously, like, the premise of goal setting, as you've said in your talk then, as is it's going to be the same in regards to the framework that you use. It's sort of always going to be that sort of methodology. What I've put here is sort of four parts. The first part is vision. So I'm obviously big on vision. The reason I think vision is so important is just to be directionally correct. If you want to achieve 30 kilos, you need to be losing weight every week. That's the direction you're pushing in. Then it comes to milestones. So breaking it down into realistic maybe goals then. Cool. 30 kilos is a great thing. And yes, I want to lose it in 12 months. And that may or may not happen. It comes down to obviously the action. But how can we say, um, what's 6 kilo in 10 weeks, let's just say, because if it's 30 in 50, then it's 6 in 10, right? That's obviously the trajectory that you should be on. If you can do 6 in 10, that means in the next 10 you can do another 6, and then so on and so forth. So it's like, cool. So rather than looking at it, here, overwhelming, 0 to 1 is easier than 0 to 50. 0 to 1, what do we need to do? We track that progress. So it's a milestone, and it's just basically tracking progress. I want to lose 20% of the weight in 20% of the time. That breaks it down, makes it a little bit more achievable. And then from there, it's about, cool, that's now the realistic goal, the action step. What do we need to do every day? And I think it really comes back to, and this is across anything, what are maybe three sort of core steps that you can take every day that move you closer? If you can hit those milestones or those steps every day, and you, without thinking about the result, because the result can often paralyze you, and just go, did I hit did I tick the box that day? Boom, yes or no. And then we do that every day. 7 days you look up and you've lost a kilo. And you're like, okay, we're in the right direction. And then I think it's track and measure, because a lot of times, right, you'll try an X and O, and maybe you won't quite hit what you want to hit. You might not lose that 6 kilo in the first 10 weeks. You might only lose 5. Do we make progress or do we not make progress?
Absolutely made progress.
So quite often, because we haven't hit goal, we fall off the wagon or see, I fucking knew I couldn't do it, without actually going, hold on a second, I'm actually 5 kilo down. I've only missed by a kilo, but I'm in a much better position now than I was then. And I think that's the fourth sort of variable is track and measure and go, what do we want to hit and where do we come? Or where do we land? And then it's just cool. The vision's still X. We're obviously, 15, 20% through the journey now. Realign and then go again. Realign and go again. And I think that's sort of the framework that I think, it's still SMART goals, but it's just given in maybe a more, like direct action oriented method where the vision is important because we need to move in the right direction. You then break it down to a smaller, all right, well, quarter of the way along the journey, I should be achieving X then. So that's what we're going to focus on because that's a lot more achievable. What are the 3 steps? I say 3, it could be more, could be less, but what are the steps that I need to take every day without worrying about the result to get us there? And then when you sort of get to that first milestone, you then look up and you go, cool. Rather than going, how far away am I still? You sort of go, cool. All right, I know I still have a road ahead, but how far have I come? All right, what do we need to do to go again? And I think that can help people stay on the course to achieving the goals that they want to achieve.
Yeah, that
Thoughts?
calibration is massive, right?
Yep.
That's the whole measurement. And what I really like about that one is when we look up, where it's like we're wanting type thing, where it's not, you're not coming from a place of lack, but um when we look up, we're sort of you're trying to get up, for lack of a better word. But a lot of people don't look down and aren't grateful for where they've come. And when you do what you do, when you calibrate and look back and go, even if you didn't get the 6 kilos, if you got 5 out of the 6 and you look back and go, well, I'm 5 steps ahead of where I was. Like that's a massive, that's the shot in the arm. That's the dopamine hit. That's you you ground it out. You raw dogged it for 5 weeks or for 10 weeks or however long it took. And you got like, that's the check mark. That's evidence that, yep, tick, I can do it. I just need to readjust a few things. Look back on, I really love how you said, what are the 3 things I need to do today? Like if you just go and focus in any endeavor, even if it's weight loss, like the example that you used, any endeavor, and go, what are the 3 most important things? I'm going to tick those off first before I take care of my day. And then the system takes care of itself.
Yeah.
I've executed, like that's perfect. Calibrate, tick those things off. Like that's magical. That's a brilliant framework. I like it.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
You spoke about it before. It just like compounds over time and it just becomes your baseline every day, right? Like you said 3 things every day. But as soon as you keep doing them, you turn into that autopilot and you just fucking keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Yeah, the more times you meal prep, you cook the same fucking meal how many fucking times? It takes like 10 minutes to do it then after that.
Yeah.
You're drinking your protein shake, you don't even think about it. You make it in the morning. Like it's just those little steps. Like, that's why we talk about like morning routine. When you make your bed, you're ticking boxes. Yeah, you might seem like the smallest little thing, but you start off with a win and then you don't even think about it after a while. Like I remember when I was, one-to-one coaching and that was one of the sort of steps. And he goes, "What? I didn't realize the power just behind doing that." Like he goes, I'm not even thinking about doing it anymore. And then I get up, I go have my shower and do all these little things. I have my coffee and then I go have my shake after go to the gym, come home and have my shake. And then he goes, I don't know, it's just a little groove. And it's like just moving the cogs. And then after a while, you don't even think about what you're doing. So it compounds over time. And then you just stack more important things on top of that.
Perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that becomes a baseline. You then start to add another 3 things, and realistically, you're doing the 6 things, not the 3.
Right.
And that's that's obviously what we want to bring
Yeah,
to
because
people.
the first three things
Yeah, just
have become
automatic.
your system. Yeah, they're
Yeah, well,
automatic.
the standard, correct. Yeah,
You're on autopilot. Like, yeah, that's your standard. That's just what you do every day. That's just like it's like you're waking up and breathing
yeah,
type thing. It's natural. It becomes part of the identity,
yeah,
which is which is a lot of people in the personal development space, they don't there's no argues, but one person will say your community is more powerful
yeah.
of an external factor to what you do, like of an influence to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Another person will say your identity is the most powerful thing. I think they go hand in hand,
Yeah,
right? And I think each influences the other, but you have to have the self-awareness to do those three things to get
yeah,
to level
yeah,
three,
yeah.
where the first three things are your system, are your
Mm,
baseline, right? And then naturally you're gonna create a new identity there, but
mm-hmm.
you're also community wise, like external factor wise,
Yeah,
other people can see, and I'm a big fan of letting people go
mm,
when they don't serve me,
yeah. Oh,
which is why I
1,000%.
don't have a lot of friends. But yeah, I think that answer that was just perfect. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think I just
brilliant
fucking
point.
destroyed your
No,
analogy,
no,
but
no. It's a brilliant point. Exactly right. The reason it's really prominent for me right now is I look at Isla, which is obviously in this dance world, and it's competition, but you don't actually compete against anyone. Like you're up on stage yourself. How someone else's performance went literally has no bearing on your performance. Literally has no bearing. So it's about getting up there and performing to the best of your ability. Now, if you do everything that you can do in that moment, you perform as well as you can. You fit all your moves, and you still don't win. It's not a factor of I didn't execute. It's a factor of the system. Like the three things that we've done daily. They need to just become more advanced now.
mm,
The dance needs to become better. All I can control is me and my action. And if I hit what I need to hit and I don't win, it's just because what I was doing isn't as good or as advanced as someone else. And then exactly what you said, Ants, the baseline becomes this now. We then start to stack things on top of that. And then before you know it, you've got 9, 10, 11 habits that you've implemented that are now just part of your day. You go to bed an hour earlier, you get up an hour earlier, you make sure you hydrate properly first thing in the morning. You make your bed, you make sure you hydrate first thing in the morning. The night before you've laid your clothes out so you're ahead of the game already. Your shirt's pressed or whatever it is you need to do. You're going to train early morning so that box is ticked and whatever happens in the afternoon can't affect it. The meal prep's done twice a week so that you've got that baseline and you're fueling your body right. Maybe you add a cold shower or do a bit of journaling, whatever it is. All these habits and they just become that second nature. And the more we can raise our standards, touching on what you said, as I think the two factors do play a part. And in the moments where you're not the person that you want to be yet, from an internal perspective, leaning on community is a really good avenue to reinforce the actions and behaviors. And then as you're leaning on this community, it actually forces you to go, I want to get to that level and level up. And then you become that baseline. And then people lean on you. And there's the whole AA thing, helping others.
mm.
They look to you for a guidance and advice. And then that's the elevation that we're sort of after. So these chats are really helpful, I think, for us. One, to look back on and document the journey. For other people who do listen, they can hopefully take something from it. But really, talking in this setting and then us being able to go back and review it, I think is really going to help build a business. This is something that we really should have been doing the whole time. So lesson learned, good option. But yeah, exciting times ahead, lads.
Very exciting times ahead, lads. I think that was a good. Um, these definitely don't feel forced. I've always said we enjoy this.
I enjoy this.
I think that's why it's good, because it's enjoyable.
Doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even label it work, so I just label it a convo. So
Let's wrap it
all
up
right,
there.
Ty Bone.
Let them know where they can find you on the socials.
Go for it,
Anson
Gary.
on Instagram, TikTok, Anson GFit as well. And of course, Facebook, Anson Gilligan. Give me a follow, all that stuff. Some content will be coming soon. And yeah, can't fucking wait.
All right, Instagram transform with Jimmy G. Same on TikTok and Jimmy Gilligan on Facebook. We do probably have a bit of a rebrand coming at some point, which may affect those things as well. Yeah, exciting times ahead, lads. Exciting times ahead.
I'll put them all in the show notes as well.
Well played.
Everyone have a good day.
Enjoy.
Be good.